Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching Paul and Karine on 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I've been a therapist and a professor for over 20 years, and when I watch these shows, often I have a lot of things to say. So let's watch this show and see if anything of interest comes out of my face while I watch.
To start feeling that bond and attachment is a very scary thing for me.
Ele tem que esquecer o passado e tentar seguir em frente com um novo relacionamento.
If we're going to get engaged, she needs to know the whole truth about everything. Because there's still a secret about my past. And anytime I tell a girl I've been dating, they decide they no longer want to be with me. I'm running out of time here, so I need to tell her soon.
Okay, interesting. So we haven't heard that from him before yet. He's been talking about how there's a secret in his past that he hasn't told her yet. And he just provided a new detail in which he said that in the past, when he has told women that he's dating about his past, they have rejected him and said they didn't want to be with him anymore. So that gives him a lot of reason to be extremely afraid of what he's about to tell her. Now, I have talked with Paul on the phone, and I know he's been to prison, spoiler alert, so I think that's what he is going to reveal. And there is just so much shame about all sorts of things in people's pasts, including having gone to prison. It is one of the most shameful things you can do or have done in your life as a person, really around the world. There's just so much shame around it. Now, why is that? Well, there's nothing wrong with being concerned if you're dating someone who has a track record of violence and murder and psychopathic behavior. That should concern you. And hearing that someone went to prison might be a red flag for that. But the fact that someone's been to prison does not necessarily indicate that the person is prone to criminal behavior in the future. It doesn't necessarily indicate that there's something wrong with their personality or something unsafe or something unsavory about their personality. It can indicate that, but it doesn't necessarily indicate that at all. Conversely, if someone hasn't been to prison, that doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't psychopathic and that they aren't prone to criminality and that they aren't prone to violence and doing things that are unsafe to you. So just focusing on the fact that someone's been incarcerated is not saying much. You just don't really know. You would have to get to know much, much more. And if you found out someone hadn't been incarcerated in the past, that also doesn't say much. There's so many other details that you have to get to know people. And I wish people would do that more. There's nothing wrong with saying, oh, they've been incarcerated, red flag. But, if you see 100 red flags, then you have something. But just one red flag, that doesn't usually indicate, or it's hard to know what that means. So I worry about Paul actually in this moment because when people experience shame, they tend to do things that aren't very healthy. People will regress to an earlier, maturity level. They might preemptively reject. It's just like, okay, I break up with you because you're going to hate me, or who knows what's going to happen. But this is another big test. Now, the two of them navigated the STI test really well, so maybe they'll navigate this well as well. Let's find out.
So, I want to come clean to Karine about everything I passed. So you can stay over here when you have a talk.
Ok? Ai, não pode sentar em cima. Pode sentar em cima. Tá molhado aí.
I'm really concerned and nervous that when Karine finds out about my past, that she's going to just walk away like all the other women did.
Now, if I were there talking to Paul, what I would say is, so you're about to drop a bomb for Karine. To tell her that you've been incarcerated in the past raises a lot of questions and is very shocking to some people. Maybe not. Maybe Karine will just be like, oh, well, what'd you do? And she'll be okay. But she might have a huge emotional reaction. And that would be expected and that would be okay. You have dealt with the fact that you have been incarcerated for years and years and years. And you've had time to adjust to it emotionally. this is the first time that Karine is going to hear it. And so she's going to have a lot of emotions crammed into a very short amount of time. And so just let her have those emotions. Maybe even in the moment she'll say, the relationship is over. I can't believe this. You lied to me, whatever. We saw Jeffrey and Varia do this. It's expected. And so what I would tell Paul is let her have her emotions. Let her have her thoughts about that. Let her struggle with it. Let her figure it out. Give her some time. And don't take her initial reaction as an indication of what her reaction will be later. With Jeffrey and Varia, for example, Varia was very upset about it right away, which is normal to be. Whoa, that's a shocking detail about the person I was thinking about spending the rest of my life with. What else is behind the curtain that I don't know about? It's very shocking. It can be very scary. So you have those emotions, you have those thoughts, you think about it, you consult, you go back to each other, you have conversations, you get more details, maybe you look up the records online, whatever you do, and it's a process. It takes time. And so what I would tell Paul is let her have her reaction. It's okay. And don't be afraid of her initial reaction. Now, her initial reaction might be sustained over time that she doesn't want to be with you. But it's possible, very likely, in fact, that her initial reaction will not reflect her eventual position on the matter. So let's see how they deal with this here.
I have a lengthy criminal record. I've been in jail, I've been in prison for numerous things.
A lengthy criminal record? Huh. I'm trying to remember what he was telling me over the phone. I didn't have the impression that it was a lengthy criminal record. So maybe there's more to it that I don't know. Okay, so let's see how they deal with this. Now, I will say that he's coming on a little strong, right? It seems that he is trying to communicate a number of things here. He's trying to be very upfront so that she knows who she's involved with. But I think he's also subtly trying to communicate that he's very upset about having to communicate this, and he's very worried about losing her. Now, a more effective way would be to communicate that. Karine, I'm about to tell you something, and I'm worried that you're going to hate me. And I just really feel like you should know my past, and I'm terrified that when I tell you, you're going to hate me and not ever want to be with me again. And so I beg you to please just listen, to the facts, because me being incarcerated doesn't really indicate who I am today. I paid my debt to society. I'm a new person now. The circumstances of the crimes in the past were particular, and they're not present right now. I'm a upstanding member of society now, and so I really hope that you can trust me. But I would understand if this is a huge deal to you right now. And I'm here to answer your questions. So, that's a way of communicating that with your words rather than through your body language, which he seems to be doing right now. The other possibility is that he is just completely distressed and freaking out right now, which I think is also present. And maybe that's his body language. Let's rewind, and you can kind of tell in his voice.
I have a lengthy criminal record. I've been in jail, I've been in prison for numerous things. I was accused of burning my own house, burning my own personal property, and spent about 18 months in jail.
Right. So I think he did tell me about that he was accused or convicted of arson, and that arson, it sounds bad, right? It's like, oh, I was convicted of arson. And you think, like, did you burn someone's house down? Did you burn like a McDonald's down? But he burned his own house down. And why would that be? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out the details about that. All right, so there's another detail, restraining order. Now, that's not a crime. It's not usually connected with a crime, usually. Sometimes it is. But people can take, protection orders. I think restraining orders are a little bit more severe than a protection order. It's been a while since I've been to courts as a professional for that sort of thing. So, that's a red flag for domestic violence, for high control, for intimidation, for threats, but not necessarily an indication of that. So I don't know. We'll see how they navigate this.
Oh my God.
And then a few years ago, I was in a very terrible relationship. She took out a emergency protective order on me. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Oh.
She doesn't deserve damaged goods. It's not fair to her.
Okay, interesting. So now he's going to a schema. He's falling into a schema of, I don't deserve love. I'm a bad person. I'm rotten to my core. There are 18 schemas according to schema therapy, and one of them is essentially, in my words, is a schema of, I'm defective. There's something wrong with me. And people with that schema will typically agree with statements like, if people knew the real me, they wouldn't love me. I'm a broken person. There's something deeply flawed with me. Usually people with that schema were treated that way growing up. So I wonder if Paul was treated that way growing up. And when I say growing up, I mean age 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. When you're treated that way through abuse or abandonment or mistreatment, neglect, you will retain that notion, that maladaptive schema, that maladaptive assumption about how the world works and how you fit into it. That there's just something deeply flawed in you. Statistically speaking, a number of you watching this right now probably have that schema because it is quite common. I don't know the percentage, but I would say 3 to 5% of the population, maybe more, would probably qualify for having the schema, self-report. Again, it's a schema of, I'm deeply flawed. If people really knew me, they wouldn't like me. They wouldn't love me. And it's a tragedy because when you treat a child as if they're worthless, as if they are flawed deeply, they retain that voice inside of them, that assumption, and then they grow up and they're 45 years old and they still absolutely assume that there's something wrong with them. So they're treated badly, and then they go into adulthood and there's this voice inside their head that continues to treat them badly. They internalize that voice. It becomes an assumption about who they are deep down. And it's awful. And when you feel that way, there's a lot of different ways to cope with it. And one of the ways to cope with it is to just basically surrender to it and say, you know what, I surrender. There's no use fighting the schema. There's no use fighting the reality that I am worthless. I'm rotten to my core. I might as well do things that confirm that, like commit crimes and go to prison. I've seen this before. Not necessarily go to prison, but I've seen people with the schema that I'm worthless. There's 3 different coping styles. You have surrender and avoid and overcompensation. To surrender is just to say, I give up. Yes, I'm worthless, and I'm gonna do flawed things to confirm that I'm a flawed person. I'm gonna find people around me to tell me that I'm a flawed, deeply, horrible human being. So that's surrendering. The avoidant coping style is to just kind of avoid doing anything that calls into question your worth. Usually this involves avoiding relationships, avoiding jobs that are challenging, avoiding any contest of your worth. The third style, to overcompensate, is to try to reverse it by calling everyone else worthless, to avoid your own sense of worthless, your own sense of being flawed and deformed on the inside. And you just call everyone out for their flaws. Oh, you're dirty, you're rotten, you're a terrible person. He doesn't seem to exhibit the overcompensation piece, at least in what we've seen. He seems to exhibit the avoidance piece because he's avoided relationships for the past 10 years. I don't know. I'd have to talk with Paul to find out if that rings true for him. But he definitely seems to be going into a mode right now of surrender, of just like, yep, here we go. she's going to hate me because, of course, everyone hates me because, of course, I'm inherently hateable. And, I might as well just give into it. And when people do that, sometimes they actually push people away, which causes them to treat you like you're worthless. And yeah, there we go again. People think I'm worthless. So let's see what happens here.
Jail.
Oh my God.
And then a few years ago, I was in a very terrible relationship. She took out a emergency protective order on me. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Oh.
So Karine doesn't seem to be that bothered by it, or maybe she is just shocked by the moment, who knows. But Paul seems to be exhibiting what we call in schema therapy to be a defective schema.
And then a few years ago, I was in a very terrible relationship. She took out a emergency protective order on me. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Oh.
She doesn't deserve damaged goods. It's not fair to her. I'm sorry.
Okay, so there it is. She doesn't deserve damaged goods. I'm defective. And there's no way she's going to love me because I just revealed the true self that I have, which is that I am deeply flawed. Now, sometimes when we surrender, we actually will push people away to make sure that they reject us, thereby confirming the fact that, yep, once again, I'm defective and everyone hates me, even though you actually caused it by doing something that causes people to run away from you. So hopefully he doesn't go into the depths of that. Let's continue watching.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, where is he going? Does he have to go to the bathroom? What's that? Is he highly distressed right now? Let's watch.
Não, é bagunça, né? Eu não tinha ideia do passado criminoso do Paul. Eu não estava esperando por isso. Sério?
I need my space right now. I need to walk away for a little bit.
Okay, so he says he needs his space. Now, he just, said something that was a big deal to him, and it's very distressing for him. And so I guess maybe one of the ways he deals with it is to take a breather, take a walk, and clear his head. Nothing wrong with that. If that's the case, he probably should have said, by the way, Karine, I'm freaking out. I need to take a walk. Give me a couple seconds to calm down. Nothing wrong with that. But there's other possibilities too here as well, where maybe this is part of his pattern of making sure that his defective schema is confirmed by falling into the defective schema. And when you fall into it, you believe it. It's not a game you play. You believe, yes, I'm defective. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with me. And he seems to exhibit that. I don't know. I'd have to get some confirmation from him. And when you fall into that defective schema, and you're surrendering, sometimes you're just like, you know what? I'm going to implode. I'm going to self-destruct my own relationships. I'm going to run away, and I give up. And she's probably going to reject me because that's just what's going to happen. Another possibility is that he's having some kind of trauma response. I don't have any indication of that, but it is a trauma response to flip out, freak out, distress, and run off. So there's that. Maybe he's trying to get her to chase him. Maybe this is a passive way of asking for reassurance, because if he runs off, then she will follow and it'll reassure him that she loves him. Maybe he's trying to distract her from the knowledge that he just dumped on her by creating some drama. I don't know. I don't want to accuse him of that, but maybe we'll get some data. Let's continue watching.
Rainey definitely does not deserve to have someone like me that's constantly has problems around her. So I hope she understands I can't be with her.
Interesting. So I don't know if I am hearing that right, but he basically just said that I can't be with her because she doesn't deserve me. That's definitely something that people with defective schemas will say. They'll just be like, I hope she understands. You hear that. It's weird, right? It's a weird twist. I hope she understands that I have to leave her because she doesn't deserve me. So one is it's like, I give up, I surrender, I'm defective, there's something deeply wrong with me, and so I might as well just preempt this by calling it off. Another thing that could be happening is to see, please, if I really fall into my defective schema and someone really reassures me, then they pass the test. It's a game that children will play sometimes. It's a game that we all play, really, to some extent. And it's like, well, if I fall into my and this isn't a conscious decision, by the way. It's a decision that you make subconsciously of just like, well, if I fall into my defective schema and I really just kind of flop and someone else comes to my rescue, then I know I can really trust them. But if I just act mature, I'll never really know if the person really would come to my rescue if I needed to. So maybe he's regressing in this moment. But another interesting part is he just bolted. Like, as soon as he turned the corner away from Karine, and maybe he thought away from the cameras, he just ran off. So I don't know what's happening. Maybe he has to go to the bathroom. Let's continue watching.
It's just not going to work.
Meu Deus, o Paul foi pro mato, velho.
Where's he going? Maybe he's just cooling off, but I don't know. That was kind of interesting, surprising. Let's continue watching.
Ele tá louco. Essa é uma área perigosa e eu tenho medo do que acontece com o Paul.
So is the production crew not with him? Have they completely lost sight of him? What is happening right now?
Ele tá pra lá? Meu Deus do céu. Oh my God. Paul!
Is he okay? I'm guessing you've seen ahead. I mean, I know he eventually lives because I've spoken to him on the phone a couple weeks ago, but what happens here? This is interesting.
I'm in Brazil, my girlfriend Karine. I just broke to her the news about me having a criminal history.
Oh my God.
I want her to understand that I'm not really good enough for her, and that she really deserves better than me. So it's best if I just end things and walk away.
Right. So that's exactly what I've been talking about, is a defective schema. Now, some people watching this might say, oh, he's just playing a game. He's just trying to trick her into liking him by him playing this game of like, you're not going to like me. And then she's like, no, I love you. And then he's like, oh, okay. And that distracts from this bomb that he drops about having gone to prison. And that's certainly possible, but the way he comes across, it really does seem like a genuine schema, meaning that it's a part of your personality. It's pervasive. It's not something that you make a choice about. It's something that you've assumed about yourself throughout your life. And it's heartbreaking. I've worked with clients before, who have had that schema of defectiveness. Bob on this podcast, he's my co-host. He has we've gone through all the schemas, and he definitely has the defective. You have to be a patron of the podcast to listen to all my episodes on schema therapy and my interviews with various different people, Umberto, Tara, other people. I go through the schema measure that I developed, and Bob will talk about, and other people will talk about just the depth, the absolute assumption. And Bob, he's a therapist, and he's been through a lot of therapy. And I will say, like, well, how do you match up the fact that you know that you have a defective schema because of the massive abuse you went through growing up, and the defective schema, this assumption that you're a terrible person on the inside, is not rational. You know that to be true intellectually, right? You know that doesn't make any sense, right? And he'll say, yeah, absolutely, I know that doesn't make any sense. And yet, I can't shake the feeling that I just know I'm defective on the inside. It's such a pervasive part of one's personality. That's what schemas are. They're not just intellectual ideas we have. They are fundamental aspects of our personality. And there are 18 different maladaptive schemas of being entitled to things, being unlovable, assumptions that other people will never love you, and so on. that intellectually you might discover, oh, that's interesting. I have this kind of irrational assumption about the world, but because it was established neurologically when you're 2, 3, 4 years old, you can't shake it, and you'll probably be dealing with it for the rest of your life. Now, you aren't doomed. Through therapy and through healing, you can manage it, but it's hard to really fully get rid of it once it's there. Anyway, I don't know if that's what's happening for Paul, but it certainly seems that way, and I feel really bad for him. Now, Karine seems to be, reacting fine, similar to the STI test incident. She's just like, Paul, whoa, seriously, he's been to prison? That's strange. Now he's running off. Another partner might get upset and say, well, screw him, he lied to me, and wander off. So, we haven't really heard much of Karine's inner life, so I don't know what's happening, but, we've seen a lot of compassion from her and a lot of care and a lot of non-reactivity. So, that's a good sign of things to come, but we'll see.
Paul! Paul!
Where are they going? Did Paul really go over there? Did he go into the river? What's happening right now?
Oh! Que isso? Paul!
Don't make me go in this water. Don't make me go in this water. Don't make me go in this water.
Paul! Paul! No!
Don't let me go in this water. Don't let me go in this water. And now she's grabbing him. This is interesting. This is going to take me a while to unpack because this is particular behavior. Is it regressing? It certainly could be that. Is it a game? Is it self-destruction? Absolutely. When people fall into the depths of their defective schema, they will self-destruct. It's weird. It's almost like I'm defective, I'm broken, I'm worthless, I deserve to be alone, I deserve to be in danger, I deserve to fall into this dirty river. I don't know if it's dirty or if it's just sediment or whatever, but I'm sure he thinks it's dirty because he doesn't like those sorts of things. But this is interesting. Let's rewind that a little bit because this is an interesting scene.
Paul!
Don't make me go in this water. Don't make me go in this water. Don't make me go in this water.
Paul!
So consciously, it sounds like he's saying, don't make me go in this water because if you chase me, I need to get away from you. And if you keep chasing me, I'm going to have to go into this water because I need to get away from you. And, I'm going to go off of the main hypothesis I have, which is defectiveness schema, and it's causing so much shame that he wants to hide and he wants to run, and basically to avoid consciously to avoid the realization of, yes, I believe you're defective, coming from Karina, that for Karine, for him to run, he is running, physically and emotionally from confirmation that he is a worthless, defective human being. And if he keeps running, maybe he'll never know what she would have said. Okay, that's one hypothesis. Another hypothesis, which actually could be going on at the same time, is I'm going to show you how ashamed I am through my behavior. I'm going to show you through my actions, because I'm not very good with my words, and this is subconscious as well, I'm going to show you how ashamed I am for my past. And maybe through my actions, you can see that I consider my past to be extremely shameful. Make no mistake, I am ashamed of my past. And if you love me, you'll chase me and you'll save me from my own self-destruction. If you love me, you will put aside the shame and tell me that I'm a good boy. That's another thing that could be happening right now. Another thing that could be happening right now is he's being filmed, and he thinks this is what he should be doing on a TV show. Because that's one of the things that we always have to consider is, the cameras aren't invisible, and they're not on candid camera. They know they're being filmed, and that absolutely plays into the system at play. If they were just alone and the cameras weren't around and they were never on this TV show, would this conversation have looked different? Probably. Hard to know if it would look vastly different from this right now. Hard to say. So this is interesting. I can see why you wanted me to watch this couple. Let's continue watching.
Paul! No! 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 O que tá acontecendo?
The emotions that I'm going through right now, it's very overwhelming. So I need to remove myself from the situation and just be alone.
Se você não quer ficar comigo, não precisa.
Don't.
Me dá isso. Eu quero falar. Me dá, eu preciso do tradutor. Me dá.
What is happening right now? Okay, he wants to be alone. He wants to be ashamed of himself. Okay. But why is he running into the woods? Why does he want to get away from her physically? Why does he want to jump in the water? Why doesn't he want to give her the phone? I'm going to run on the hypothesis that he's terrified, or maybe he wants to communicate that he's terrified that she will reject him. Maybe he has some deep, deep rejection traumas and deep, deep defectiveness, self-worth issues. Certainly seems to be pointing in that direction. But he has an odd way of coping with it. It lends itself to a passivity, a passive request of, please, please do not reject me, which he could use his words to say instead of this whole drama around this. Most people don't do drama voluntarily. They're usually compelled by defenses. So I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. So she's trying to talk with him. She needs the phone, and he is physically barring her from doing that. It certainly is confusing.
Você tá louco?
It's a great question. What are you doing? Let's start there.
Ok, tudo bem. Não me importo.
Go back.
Eu não me importo.
Go back. Go back. That's sweet. That is really sweet. But you don't understand.
Vamos.
So it's hard to know if this is playing it up for cameras or what's going on, but it is consistent with a defective schema. I've had arguments like this with clients where it gets frustrating for me as a therapist to watch people fall into those schemas of deep defectiveness. And I'll just be like, don't do that to yourself. What are you doing? Like, you're a good person. There's nothing defective about you. And all those voices that you have in your mind are because of the way you were treated when you were very, very young. And we've established that. Don't do this to yourself. It's very distressing to watch someone beat themselves up so effectively for no reason. I mean, right now, if we just were to look at the facts, he has what he believes to be a very shameful detail of his past. He revealed it. She doesn't seem to mind at all. She's like, I don't care. Now, maybe she cares a little bit, but she doesn't want to let on because she's trying to be nice in this moment. But she certainly doesn't seem like she cares that much. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Yeah, you're being nice, but yeah, that's fake, or you're gonna reject me. It's because when you see the world, because that's what I mean by pervasive through your personality, is that you see the world through your schema. It's not just like a voice in your head. It's actually like the way you see the world. Everything gets filtered through this absolute assumption, 110% assuredness that I am defective. And by you saying you don't care about my past, you must be lying, or you're just a nice person, and later on you'll realize, or you're just worried I'm going to jump into this water, or you're playing it up for the cameras. That just can't be true. There's just no way that you don't realize how deeply rotten to the core that I am. And so it's consistent with that. I don't know. There's other hypotheses, but that's my main hypothesis that I would go with if I were working with someone like this. And then I would have to test it by asking him, whenever I say in these reaction videos that I have an hypothesis, I mean them as hypotheses, meaning that they are guesses based on a little bit of data. And you test hypotheses by confirming it with clients by getting more data that is really only available if I'm working with a client. When I'm watching the show, I don't have usually enough data to go off of to confirm or deny, strongly anyway, an hypothesis. So that's what I mean by that. Let's continue watching.
You go back.
Let's go. Não, eu não vou sozinha.
But you need to stop. But you need to
Bom, vamos embora daqui, vai.
stop. You're pushing me into thorns.
Eu odeio você, sabia? Eu odeio você. Ai.
Okay, interesting. So she said, I hate you. You know that I hate you. Now, is that a missed translation? What does she mean by that? Is it just an expression like, you're being a butt right now, stop it? Who knows? I suspect that's something along those lines because up until this point, she's been more than sweet to him. So let's continue watching.
Ok. Você que sabe, eu não vou mais fazer isso.
At this point, I don't care what I encounter.
Okay, so they tried to work it out. Karine tried to bring him back. He was refusing. He wasn't listening to her. She's frustrated, rationally so, understandably so. And now he's heading further into the wilderness, I'm guessing to get away now from the cameras, because Karine's walked off. So what is he doing? I mean, it's distressing to watch. It seems like he's really having an episode right now.
Ai. Ok. Você que sabe, eu não vou mais fazer isso.
At this point, I don't care what I encounter. If I get bit by a snake, if I get in a dirty water and catch God knows what.
So I'm just going to take another guess at this schema and what's happening and say that it's possible that when he was growing up, 4 years old, 8 years old, that something about his life back then or the way he was being parented resulted in him learning a coping skill to that abuse or mistreatment or something that involved something along these lines. Because this seems like a regression. It seems like falling into an earlier state of mind. You could see an 8-year-old doing this, like the 8-year-old child gets their cookie in the cookie jar and eats half the cookies. Mom comes home, looks in the cookie jar and says, Paul, did you eat cookies in the cookie jar? And the kid is like ashamed and worried and doesn't know what's going to happen. And so the kid runs off into the woods and the mom's like, where are you going? And the 8-year-old boy is just like, I'm just going to jump into the river. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible person. And now the mom's like, whoa, no. It kind of works, right? I'm ashamed I did something wrong. And if I put myself in danger, then my mom will come save me and reassure me that I'm a good person. There's a lot of function to that weird dynamic, which is I, Paul, am going to communicate how ashamed I am and how sorry I am. And I'm also going to distract you from the fact that I did something bad by basically creating so much self-imposed, self-destructive drama that you're probably going to forget the fact that I ate half the cookies in the cookie jar. I don't know, but it has that flavor to it. I would have to ask Paul if that makes any sense to him. So I really hope that he manages to pull back on this because where is he going? It's a very interesting episode.
I'm a bad person.
So there's that schema. I'm a bad person. You'll hear that. That's one of the questions that I will ask. Do you agree? How strongly do you agree with the statement, I am a bad person? And if you don't have that schema, you might be like, why would you agree with that? Doesn't make any sense. Of course, people should know that they're not a bad person. That's ridiculous. But when you have that schema, man, you believe it. you were just like, yes, I am a bad person. If people knew the real me, they would not love me. It's a fact. It's just the way that it is. So if he does have that schema, I feel really bad for him.
Eu quero ir pra casa, eu não quero mais ficar aqui. Meu Deus. Ai, meu Deus.
Yeah, I seem to remember catching a glimpse of this scene when I was watching the first season with Darcy. And it was confusing to me back then, but I think I can see it now because I've been watching this couple. So they just got mugged, legit, seemingly, by two young men with machetes trying to steal their phones while being filmed. Imagine muggers being so bold to just be like, yeah, I see you have 3 cameras and, American production crew, and I'm just going to walk up with a machete and try to hide my face. Now, presumably, they got the guys' faces, and so they can bring them to justice. I don't know. And now Karine has been traumatized by being mugged. Now, I don't know if I would blame that on Paul, because if Paul were there, it's not like it would have changed anything. Because remember, we have Karine, we have at least one camera person and a production person. There's probably more than just 2 people with him. There's probably 5 people with him at this point. So Paul being there wouldn't necessarily have changed that. We can't imagine Paul fighting off people with machetes, and he'd be advised not to. So, this is extremely unfortunate. How terrible to be mugged at machete point. This is awful. This is just awful.
Let's go, guys. Let's go. Vai lá. Eu quero ir pra casa, eu quero mais ficar aqui.
We just got mugged. She just got mugged.
Let's go, guys. Let's go. Ai, meu Deus. Vai lá. Meu Deus.
Is that gunshot? Wow. This is hard to watch. This is scary. This is pretty tough to watch. And I guess I understand why people would want me to react to this. I feel bad for both of them. I feel bad for Karine getting mugged at with machetes. That's very scary. I mean, the guy had the machete like he was gonna hurt her, and the camera crew is there. I wonder how the camera crew feels. Paul, probably more reason for Paul to feel like he's a defective, terrible person because he abandoned her and then she gets mugged. I wonder if people are wondering if that was staged. It certainly didn't look staged to me. It's just a very shocking episode. That was. I mean, it's a little traumatic for me to watch. That was awful. I feel really bad. It came on. It was so fast. It came on so fast. Anyway, everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of other people because we all deserve it. We really, really do.